Hello and welcome to Friday, August 12th, 2011. And it's the return of Carolyn Rosen and William Wood on Visual Radio.
Thank you, Joe.
Did you enjoy your previous time on Visual Radio?
Of course.
Yes. It came off very well, thank you.
Great little forum.
Joe, I'll tell you something. People stopped us in the street, each one of us at different times, and actually in different places. People we never saw before. And they said, you were on TV, and I hadn't been on TV for quite a few years. And I said, what? And they told you about your show. I learned more about the Green Line on your show than I knew about the Green Line at all.
It's so important for us to get the message out, whatever the community thing is. I do a Thursday night live show. Mm-hmm. And Anthony Gamari in there sent me an email, and he says, we have these girls, 5 women, 5 beautiful young ladies from colleges all around the country doing Climate Summer. So 2 weeks ago, I didn't read up on it. Anthony said, did you read up on it? I said, no, I don't read up on anything. I just have my guests in, and we could have went for 3 hours. It was great, and I put it up. But these young ladies are driving around the country on their bikes. And this was you've heard of it? Cambridge's. Yes. It was so great to have them here. This is great community programming. They were camped out in Winchester for 2 or 3 days doing a free movie at the Congregational Church, which we do stuff with. Some of the churches come in here and do things with us. So I just felt really good that the forum is open and anyone can step in, and everyone usually walks out having fun.
Great.
That's what it's all about.
That's great.
And I'm glad you had fun and you're back. I'll interrupt us. Man Who Fell to Earth, still quite a trip. They're going to redo the movie.
The Man Who Fell to Earth?
I thought the Bowie movie fell kind of flat.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did.
It's such a good premise. Mm-hmm. I saw the change up. I still haven't reviewed it, where Jason Bateman changes minds with Ryan Reynolds. Mm-hmm. It falls flat. It had so much potential. It's actually pretty good. But there's the cringe factor of these guys who write these dirty movies for the kids. There's too many colorful metaphors throughout the whole movie. It just...
Well, I heard Kelleher on Channel 4, I guess it was the radio Channel 4, and what I heard Kelleher say about the, what was it, the Planet of the Apes, was supposed to be a very good morality play. And he's encouraged me to go see it.
Go see it. It's excellent.
You seen it?
I saw the screening. You're going to love this. We had a 10 o'clock screening at Lowe's for the critics. So the door was locked. The girl's opening the doors and letting us in. And she sees me, who are you? I said, Charlton Heston. She says, come in. Film critic Charlton Heston. I mean, the kids today aren't even aware
of who
he is.
Yes.
Not only that he was in Planet of the Apes, but who Charlton Heston is. Just call me Charlton for the rest of the show.
Makes you feel old, doesn't it, Joe?
No, it does.
I used the Great Imposter's name many times, and jokingly.
Alan Smithy?
No, oh God, you got me on that. I forgot his name. And remember when Tony Curtis made the movie?
No. Ferdinand DeMarco.
Ferdinand DeMarco, right. Well, and I use it, and nobody knows who he is. It was a big thing in our life.
I'm sitting there watching Planet of the Apes, and I'm saying, this is really good. Should I write a good review of this? Because will people think I'm crazy? This movie that seems so cheesy on its face is actually really good. And I walked out, this is a great movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so I can't tell you how good it is or how bad it is. It was worth watching. From what Kelleher says, usually Kelleher is a critic that digs deep in political stuff and comes up with something maybe a little different than everybody else each time. When he came in and did a movie, I was a little surprised, because that's not his forte, you know that. You know?
Well, there's no Jerry Goldsmith soundtrack, which I adored in the Charlton Heston film. Mm-hmm. And there's none of that creepy aura and sense of, just wonderment. Where are we? And the whole barren planet, the whole setup, the premise. This is so different, but Jimmy Franco comes into his own. All the acting is great. Lithgow, the young lady, she's new, she's really good, and the monkeys were incredible, and the apes.
Well, Lithgow hasn't done a movie in a while. This is been a while since he's been around for a while. You know?
What's kind of weird is like Beginners, where they have Christopher Plummer as an old man dying. Lithgow is the same, and it's like these older actors are coming in, and the new crop of actors are coming up.
Yes.
And he has 2 actors that die in the movie. And it's like, whoa, is that what's coming down to? You know, do I get a death scene before I go?
Was Charlton Heston in it?
No.
No.
Only one quote from
No,
him.
he's gone now.
Oh, yeah, well.
But he
somebody
meant
said
through
something.
CGI maybe?
Yeah.
Or just, no, there's no reference. They shattered the whole mold, and they really did a reboot and a prequel.
Ah.
Oh, okay.
It's an instance where they're doing the reboot and the prequel at the same time.
Well, it's a good, then it'd be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Speaking about movie soundtracks, I always judge a movie soundtrack when you play it by itself outside the movie and whether it can stand alone. And Jerry Goldsmith is one of my favorite composers. He did the music to Patton, and that's a soundtrack you can play by itself outside of the movie, and it's like a classical piece. It's just beautiful.
And not only that, the Planet of the... In the old days, when I was like 14, I had these movies, House of Frankenstein, the silent movies,
Yeah.
Curse of Frankenstein. Some would give you a little 45 RPM to play with them. But I would play the Planet of the Apes soundtrack by Goldsmith, and it matched up with every one of them.
One of them?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfectly. It was just awesome.
That's good. Good work. Is that why you asked us here today, was to talk about movies? Because I'll get into Wing. You know, Wings is coming to a silent movie to Medford, to the Chevalier Auditorium in, I think, next month. They're going to do a silent movie and do the organ instead of a piano playing it like the old silent movies. Now, Wings was a heck of a movie in its time. When you start to see the airplanes fighting and how they got how they got them to fight. Now, obviously, they didn't put them in the air to fight, but it was an interesting movie to watch, and how we have progressed from that type of artistry to the newer artistry we work with. Of course, you might fall asleep. It's a 2-hour silent movie.
Oh, I thought it was a music film because Grace Wing was her maiden name before she was Grace Slick.
I actually, when I heard it, I thought it was Paul McCartney's old band.
Oh, thank you. Very good. We got him on, but we just double teamed him.
Yeah.
We've been talking movies for weeks now. It's just so much fun, and like I said, the forum is open. But there's a lot of political stuff going on in Medford and in Winchester. And look, we got a whole crop of city council candidates. I don't know, there's maybe 3, Matt Habestro and 2 others,
Right.
that are vying for the position.
Well, you have got Rick Cavallero, and from the for those of you who don't know me, I work in Medford a lot. Rick and Matt are the 2 who look like they might have a shot to knock somebody off. Who, what, where? Hard to say. I wouldn't predict it.
Yeah, I wouldn't either because it's so volatile. Every election, it seems that the votes just kind of switch.
Right.
You know, Paul Camuso put a lot of money into the last campaign.
I think he'll do the same this time too.
Double what he did, you know, with all the others.
He wants to be number one if he wants to go further on. But on the other hand, he may be very busy because the new sheriff has a different view of how to run the sheriff's office. You never could tell. He may not have the time to run like he is.
Is he still in there?
The new sheriff?
No, is Paul
Paul's
still in the sheriff's
still
office?
in there.
I thought he cleaned house, the new guy.
He cleaned certain jobs out that he felt weren't bad, but I believe Paul's still there. The last time I talked to Paul.
Oh, so he's like an accountant or something for them, I think.
Purchasing department. Something, I think that's still what his job is. I think he's the head and director of purchasing.
We get along fine outside of the city council. And,
I
you
know.
I mean, we see each other and we're all pals, but it's
Oh,
just,
he's known you a long time now, Joe. Come on.
Yeah.
Now, I would imagine since Burke left, Burke left, and Stephanie Burke was the number 1 person who used to come very close or take the position of the number 1 position. So she's gone, and it was a good job with Glenn, and so it's wide open, number 1, and Paul can step right into that.
you think so?
Yeah, he should. Who's gonna beat him? Who would beat Paul, and not beat him in terms of not getting him elected, but get more votes than he does?
You mean for mayor?
Yeah, no, for city council,
council.
top of city council.
Oh, president?
No, yeah, I don't want to call it. Who would get him? Who would get the most votes out of the city council? He's the one that looks like he would carry it very easily.
There's a term, McGlynn fatigue. I think some people...
Oh, that's a good one. I've heard it.
You know who coined it.
Yep. You think Johnny Bias got a shot?
No, John doesn't have a shot. John had a shot. John had a shot because he and his mother are working hard. I love his mother. She's great.
Right.
His mother's working hard for him. But I said, this is a great David and Goliath fight.
Didn't one of Johnny's family members say something recently?
His father attacked him on the Carl Galusi show.
Oh.
People in Winchester were talking Medford politics, but bear with us, it's fun. Johnny Byer's father on Monday night, which was, today's the 12th, so that was like the 7th or 8th, I think, right? Just got on the air and started lambasting Johnny, saying none of the family members were voting for him, which is absolutely untrue. Johnny's family's behind him 100%.
That's what I've heard. I've always heard that Johnny's family encourages him to do things. And Johnny's a nice kid. Come on.
He's a
he
good
may not
kid.
be as young as he used to be, but he's still a very nice man. And he does bring up some very interesting points.
He's more astute than people give him credit for.
Yep. But Antonio now, on the other hand, he's backed by the Sacco group. From what I hear, I might be wrong.
Chief Sacco?
No. George Sacco, who used to be in Winchester as a state rep, I believe. So, and Sacco was, went from Medford to Winchester and back again.
Now, is that involved with the sports Saccos?
Sacco's not the same.
Not the same people that do the sports?
No, I don't think so.
Different families. So isn't Chief Sacco different than the other?
They're all, oh wow, there's a lot of Saccos.
Sacco, it's a big name in Italy. It's an Italian name. So you got that group, and now George worked for Pat Jalen's, who owes him a favor, and George's daughter works as
Staff aide.
Staff aide, legislative aide, director of legislative aide. It's one of those jobs. No, she's not the manager, but she works for Pat Jalen's at the State House. So you would think that would might give Antonio, if he puts all that Italian vote together, as Paul Donato has many times, and who Paul got 77%, 77% of the vote in the city of Medford.
And you were the manager?
I was one of the coordinators, not the manager.
Okay.
Steve Viglione.
Okay.
The head of Arlington Catholic is his manager. He's the principal of Arlington Catholic.
Now, Paul's running unopposed this time, right?
He isn't running. Not until next
year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Next year.
No, the presidential election.
Yes, exactly. He'll be running in the presidential.
State reps and the
state reps,
senators,
state senators, and the mayor's running this year time. So it's the mayor, Antonio, and Jodie.
I'll tell you a funny story about McGlynn. I went down when they did the pulling of the hat, and I had the camera, so I've got it in one of the computers I taped. And McGlynn called Johnny into the office. So McGlynn didn't come out. He had his daughter in with the pulling of the hat. He doesn't like to be on camera. He's camera shy, our mayor of 24 years. And they called Johnny into the office. He talked to John for about 20 minutes, and John said, Your Honor, it was very easy for me to get signatures. He goes, really? When they just saw anyone was running against you, they were just happy to sign. And he was like shocked. He goes, there's a lot of, John's telling him, and John's pretty straight. So John tells me that the mayor was in South Medford knocking on doors, and from what I hear is the mayor asked someone, do I have your vote? And they said, not this time, Your Honor. Or not this time, Mike, or
something like that.
So he heard it from John. I guess he went walking around South Medford. This is what I hear. And the mayor's seeing that there's some fatigue out there.
That would be Pat Jalen's new area in Medford. Think about it. South Medford went for, but let's look at the reality of the situation in politics. The reality of the situation is the over 50 crowd will go out and vote in the numbers of 80 to 90%, and they're the largest voting bloc in the city. Now, one of Michael McGlynn, the mayor of Medford's, we'll call an opponent. He's really not opponent in sense thing, but they argue a lot. Mr. Penta, Bob Penta, gets a section of that vote too. If he's able to carry that vote over to anybody, Antonio, and Antonio is able to get the vote of the Italians together, I think that there is in the numbers on paper, there's a number of enough to just barely creep by. But what we're going to do is see the primary. Remember, the primary is going to be an important part of this election.
If there is a primary.
No, there is.
There will
be a primary. I was talking with the Ladies and gentlemen, I work with the Democratic Party in the city of Medford. I'm the chairman of the Ward 3 Democratic Party. And my wife, Carolyn, is the recording secretary of the city party. So we have to keep up on these things. And she's having a debate on, what days are they?
October 5th and October 12th, we'll be having a school committee and city council forum.
Monday and Tuesdays?
They're both Wednesday nights.
Wednesday night, October 5th, Wednesday night, October 12th.
Yes.
Right, at City Hall.
At City Hall, Alden Chambers, Medford.
All right.
Yes.
Right, Medford. And you're not going to do the mayor, right?
We'll be doing the mayor, but we're not going to do one before the primary. We're going to be doing it after the primary.
So
it's just too close to be able to really do that.
So when you see the primary come out, the top two candidates will go head to head. Johnny, if he really gets his vote out and keeps it out, could be a spoiler. He could actually make Antonio win, or Michael McGlynn win. Depends upon how many votes there are. So that's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, I'm just saying it's possible.
I think Johnny had a legitimate shot when he was focused, and then he just got unfocused, and he gets phone calls from a certain organization we know of, and they put things in his head, and all of a sudden he starts losing his focus. And I just thought, wow, he had this David and Goliath thing. Just, if he got 2,000 or 3,000 votes, I think would really make the mayor stand up and take notice.
Of course. If he got 2,000 or 3,000 votes, it would make anybody stand up and take notice.
And I think he had that potential.
Probably did. 2,000 or 3,000 votes, a lot of votes.
Yeah.
Great deal. Well, there are groups in Medford who run just to win 2,000 votes, so they can have a say at different meetings and different things. That's good. Nothing wrong with that. That's part of our democracy.
Now, when Paul Donato ran, and there was McCabe and Corrales, I thought Corrales was a good kid. I said, why don't you run for city council? What are you doing? This is a powerful state rep. Why wouldn't you get your feet in the water with a city council or school committee? Something just to get your name out there. And he talked to me for a good 45 minutes. Nice kid. And where are they now? They just kind of vanished, those two candidates.
Well, I think sometimes candidates' life changes. They go on. A lot of times they get disappointed when they don't first win. In regards to that, and then a lot of times their life changes. They have children, they get married, their life focus changes a bit. Politics isn't as easy as folks seem to think it is around running for political office. It's you got a lot of folks you have to address and a lot of issues, and I think you know better than I do on a lot of the issues.
Some of the problem was Pat McCabe, who could have done better, in my opinion.
Yes.
If he didn't make the stupid comment that Paul Donato was the problem on the oil prices. That
was an amazing moment in the whole election.
You remember that was our debate. It was an
amazing. Yeah.
That was our debate. I was sitting there timing it, flabbergasted that anything was being said that way.
And George Foreman Donato hit a left hook that just blasted him right out of the election.
Yeah.
Humorously, yeah.
It was great, though.
It was.
It was a great political moment in Medford.
Yeah, but what Pat's doing now is what he did before. He's working for SEIU as an organizer of the unions, and he was an organizer up in New Hampshire, so he's back into union work. And we may see him someday again. His wife, on the other hand, have you ever heard her sing? She's a beautiful singer.
Put her in the Chevalier.
And not only that, but she had a great personality, and people thought she should run for an office. She was that good. But she works on veteran stuff. She's doing the boxing things for veterans and sending them overseas. It's a job, and I don't remember the name of the organization she works for. Nice lady. Pat's a nice guy. When other than politics, people don't realize most politicians are really nice people. The thing is, once they get into office, they let power get to their heads. Now, the one I'm going to be honest, I work with him a lot, and it doesn't do that is Paul Donato. You can sit down, anybody can sit down and talk to Paul Donato.
I like him. He's a good man.
He's a nice guy.
Very nice man.
And he's on different sides of issues. You would think he's a liberal one day and a conservative the next, because he doesn't go by party structure. It goes by what the issue is the best for the state of Massachusetts.
And he gets things done.
Oh yeah, he does get things done.
It would be great to see him as mayor, or even Penter. I thought Penter needed a change of scenery. It'd be nice to see him run for mayor, because Penter and Bob, my uncle, have been up there for a very long time. And as much as I like Bob Penter, you know I do.
Yeah, I know you do.
I'm just thinking in terms of term limits. Bob could lead by example and just like go for the mayoral thing. Really give McGlynn a run for his money instead of taking it from behind the podium.
Well, he's retired now, and he's a lot older than he was. He's probably looking at, he's doing the best he can with what his troops are. Bob Penter's a Republican. This is not a Republican-Democratic fight, but it is in a non-traditional way. And you know, the philosophies are different. Philosophy of one side versus the philosophy of the other. We've, as Democrats, we've visited, and by invitation, the Republican Party's events, just to get to know what our friends on the other side are doing.
But in the towns, it's not as, in the cities and towns, it's not as, you know, vociferous as nationally, which is a whole other blur.
Oh, now that's a, you know, and then you have the third party in there, which is the Tea Party. And by the way, I'm a Democrat, so I'm going to say this. I like the Tea Party. I like some of the issues they bring up. I don't like everything. I don't like everything in my party or anybody's party. If you did, you'd be more of a robot than a thinker.
Yeah, you have to have some kind of independent thought.
Right, and there's a lot of independent thought in it. And you shouldn't try to look at politicians as just making up things as they go along. And they shouldn't make up things as they go along. And I'll give you some examples. On the Green Line, which we've talked about in the past with you, there are politicians who said, we have all the funding for the Green Line. Well, they didn't. And, you know, and they didn't know where the money was coming from. Things like that.
I heard we had all the funding on the Big Dig, did we?
Oh, God. It's still going on.
It's still, I think they found a sinkhole that they're still trying to figure out what's going on there. But I think, you know, there's a lot of rhetoric that goes around about transparency in politics and accountability. But I think as Bill talked about, especially as we saw in the Green Line, you know, a lot of people get played by politicians who aren't really transparent, even though they say they are, around funding. For example, we've known all along there really wasn't enough funding for the Green Line, that if the federal government didn't come back in to, which it looks like they're not for a long time going to fund the Green Line, they would pick up 50% of the cost, that if it had to come back to the state, especially in the economy, the way it is right now, that it would become a large state battle in terms of why would we be putting this much money into one city, into one university, when there's so many other needs that we have right at the moment. And you know, we know that based on sources that we have at the State House, they've told us all along that this project was going to be long delayed because they could not see that issue coming back to the State House when they're dealing with all sorts of deficits. They're dealing with facing federal cuts that could come in and hurt research and development and other companies that are highly dependent on federal funding in the Massachusetts area. So, you know, that's one of the issues I think on even the federal level that people are getting very frustrated with in the country, is that we're talking more about political rhetoric trying to get a vote versus really telling you what's going on. And I personally, I feel that people are grown up enough to accept what reality is. It's when you're playing the rhetorical game that I think people get really frustrated with politicians.
There's an interesting two-person ideology difference, both in the Democratic Party, on transportation. That's been, both of them have been put on the committee, whatever they call that committee.
In Massachusetts?
Yeah, no, one's from Massachusetts, one's from Montana.
Oh, nationally?
Nationally. Okay. And that committee, Debt Reduction Committee, I think it's called, or something similar to that, is Max Backus in Montana, who wants to see transportation in the West and the South, which has no transportation. And then John Kerry, who wants to have Tufts University get this $2.5 to $3 billion thing. When you add
Did you say billion?
billion,
B-I-L-L.
billion,
Billion.
and billion, and the problem is,
John Kerry's spending his own billions?
he's a supporter of university
I know.
university expansionism, and John will say to you, it creates jobs. Well, yes, it probably creates research jobs. Do you do research for $150,000 a year?
I would like to.
I don't know too many people in the state who actually do that kind of work. I do know researchers, don't misunderstand, and I know that there are good researchers, and then there have some good people who have done some very bad things. But is that all the economy needs? Or is it we need plumbers, we need carpenters, we need builders, we need electrical workers, we need manufacturing jobs, we need other jobs. Well, we can't just put $2.5 billion, which includes building Leachmere, a maintenance center, and doing the Green Line 2, just College Ave and Boston Ave, Tufts University. Even the United States Postal Service has said there's not enough business they want to close the postal office at Tufts University. There's not enough business for that. What jobs is that going to create once it's built? I favor the Green Line, but I'm still asking this question. What jobs is it going to create? You keep claiming this. Now, one of the things that they've also claimed, have you been reading some of those blogs lately?
No, I haven't.
All right, if you read some of those blogs, there have been people who said, I bought this land and this project because the Green Line's coming. Well, I go down to Foxwood and I put my money on, let's say, a number 32 on a wheel, roulette wheel. I'm gambling. It's called speculative gambling, what these people did. If it takes 20 years, and it did take 20 years for the West End to be built, it did take more than 20 years for Kendall Square to be built, that's what these projects take. They took, even Wellington Circle, I think it's 30 years for Wellington Circle. I may be wrong on that.
Kenmore Square took forever. They wanted to change the
Square,
face.
another good one. And we have to look at this and say, how much can we afford all at once? So I'm saying, and I think Carolyn and Glam will say similar things, that we want it built in increments so that when you build it, it's only going to cost you $100 million right now. Let's look at what it does in that. If it does something good, we move it on to the next place. And you know who did that? The Orange Line. And by the time the Orange Line got to stops that people were screaming and hollering about not wanting, what happened? They saw some of the good points and some of the bad points. And the way of the good points outweigh the bad points. But it never reached the full potential that they claimed it would have.
And I wanted to take the Orange Line from Malden and go all the way back to Medford Square.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Make a big loop.
A lot of people would like to go to Medford Square because that's really where the city is planning for its economic development.
Sure.
I think, we've been involved in some of the planning processes around Route 16, which I think the big thing that we've heard in the last 2 weeks of people calling us up is, why are we spending money in planning and all this sort of thing when they can't even get it funded to College Ave? That's becoming the big thing, which I think now is making the Route 16 planning kind of a moot point. It's like, why are we spending money here when we can't make it there? And so it's becoming quite of a bit of, the Green Line's becoming, I think, a boondoggle. And I think, as Bill said, we supported it when the FEIR report came out, the final environmental report, that they should do it in phases, because the biggest issue that GLAM has had has been around social equity. And when Bill talks about what kind of jobs, we're saying the trickle-down effect is not working. The too big to fail is not working. We've got to start looking at taking bite-size projects and making those work first before we start taking on the whole meal. and we can't afford it, and that's one of the biggest problems that we're, we're concerned about.
How do you afford one project for one city and one university, and the rest of the state goes unintended? If you take, let's say hypothetically, and I want your public to understand, I use the word hypothetically. Hypothetically, we say it's going to take billions of dollars to build this. We're going to only get the ridership, according to the state, that is below at College Ave, where it's supposed to stop now, below what they need to build it for, according to their own planners. So, now, it's also not going to correct any of the air quality for Medford, but it might, and that again is a might, it might clean up some of the air quality in Boston if all the cars take off. The President of the United States, as we all know, has just said we're going to fight to get a 51 to 57 miles average new mileage out of the car industry in 2025. Excuse me? That's when you're talking about the cars leaving the state. It's so colluded with theoretical and not
by
practical.
2025, if we don't have computers running cars instead of oil, I mean,
yeah, I understand.
something.
So you and I agree, but they know they're not going to do that now. That means most of the studies that have been done for the Green Line are outdated. And in 10 years from now, when they get money, they're even going to be 10 more years outdated. They may have to redo the whole thing over again.
In fact, they just recently, they're recommending to stop all studies around the red line, blue line connector, because they're finding that the things they started 20 years ago around that are actually very much outmoded. There's different technology. There's a lot of new things that have occurred that have really made that outmoded. So when you think about really the Green Line, and again the papers are pushing this 2018 date, but when you look at the report, they're talking about 2020 on the Green Line. By that time, there'll be so many different changes,
hopefully,
that it may become like the red line, blue line connector, where they're like, why would we put money into this? There's a whole different perspective we're now seeing that would not make this a viable particular project. So that's, I think, the big thing on the Green Line.
You know, the one thing on the Green Line that everybody forgets, and which is what we should really be concentrating on now, is there are still stops on the Green Line that people want to go to. For instance, Boylston Street. You know the Boylston Street stop on the Green Line?
Sure.
Do you know that disabled people can't go on that line?
Nope.
They can't get up. Can't get up those stairs. No way. There's no elevator. There's no escalator.
I don't think about it.
But well, but if
No,
you,
and I'm not saying
I understand.
I'm just so busy doing my thing,
doing
getting
your
to
own
the
thing,
movie
right?
theater.
And most
I don't even
people
think
don't.
about it.
Do you know right across the street is the Department of Transportation building, where all these transportation agencies who are making the decisions for you are saying things like, oh, that we're not going to fix that particular site. We're going to let you go to Park Street. Now, Park Street for a person in a wheelchair and someone who walks with a cane is quite a ways away from that. Excuse me, you can't even fix the station next to your building. I question the validity of how they think. If you can't get to the meetings at DOT to say, no, I don't want that. I want Boylston Street fixed so that I can get to your meetings.
Well, I have a general rule. If it's not logical, there's an ulterior motive.
Are you saying there might be a political motive behind it?
Absolutely.
Well, wouldn't that be your political motive? Might be. They don't want you to really, the public to really go to these meetings, and they want to be able to plan without participation because we get in the way of their plan.
Sure. I mean, we see that in Medford with, me having to go to City Hall, and, I gave it to Addie DePaula, and she said she'd give it to the mayor.
No, explain to the public what that is, Phil.
Medford TV3, I went over to the City Hall this morning, and I saw Addie DePaula, and she works for Mayor McGlynn, and I said, hi, Addie, I have a nice, clean show. There's nothing controversial here. It's just Bruce Kulick from the band Kiss, my movie critic, Frank Delastrito, and Tom Cooper, an Emerson College teacher. nice, clean show. I said I expect it to be on in prime time. And I went over to Mark Rumley's office, left him a letter and a copy on his desk. Now, since I'm paying a franchise fee every single month.
A franchise fee? What do you mean by the franchise fee?
Franchise fee, when you have a cable bill, there's a little franchise
Oh,
fee.
Oh,
which
yeah,
funds
on your
I
cable
forgot
bill.
about
access like this.
Oh, you mean that Winchester also pays that bill that way?
Yes, they do. And we have a beautiful facility here.
How come
and-
you don't work in that station over in Channel 3?
Because I'd have you on the air every week, and I'd have Jim Morse on the air, I'd have Allison Goldsberry on the air, I'd have Matt Haberstra on the air, I'd have everyone on the air. Johnny Byers, you know, Johnny got a phone call on Monday night because TV3 didn't like what he said on the air. So Dan Sarno called Johnny up.
Yeah.
And John said, I would throw you guys out and have Joe Vig come in here and put real programming like he does over in Winchester.
Oh.
That didn't sit well, but he got hung up on. But
Well-
they called him. So, you know.
So you're saying that there is political motivation. I'm getting
Vinnie Piero syndrome.
Vinnie Piero.
VPS. The mayor's suffering from Vinnie Piero syndrome.
What's that?
Do you know the politician Vinnie Piero?
Yes,
Yeah,
of
we
course.
know.
Did you know what happened on public access in Somerville in 1984?
No, I
Mayor
don't.
McGlynn does. I'm going to tell you the story. It's right on the Somerville Access TV. Somerville Access plays my show, Somerville Community Access TV. You'll see Bill and Carolyn there too, and in Cambridge. But on the SCAT website, they have the history of access. And in 1984, Vinnie Piero was on trial with the FBI had a sting operation.
Right.
And they got him on tape saying, I got to grease some guys.
But wait a minute, wasn't he found not guilty on that?
Acquitted. They had the
Acquitted,
tape.
okay.
I got to grease some guys.
Yeah.
Allegedly, he was tipped off not to take the money. So they had the tape, got to grease some guys, but they didn't have him taking the money like Diane Wilkerson.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So when he went to trial, he was acquitted
Yeah.
in court. But in
Yeah.
the court of public opinion, Dead Air Alive, a TV show in Somerville, did a mock trial. They got the FBI transcripts or something, and they did a mock trial on Dead Air
Oh, I
Alive.
remember that, sure.
And I believe Vinnie went down, and the next day, the election day, he went down to the station, and it was acrimonious, and they got it on
No.
TV.
Well, I can't believe that.
And Mr. Albano won the election as a write-in.
Sal? Yeah.
As a write-in.
Right.
So Vinnie Piero lost. And my way of thinking, what I've written to Rumley, I've written to the mayor, is this Vinnie Piero syndrome. If you keep people off of the television, they can't criticize waste management, a Comcast deal, why isn't Verizon here, what's this about River's Edge, and things.
Oh, you're talking, I see where you're going with that. Now, getting back to Vinnie Piero for a minute. Vinnie Piero also, by the way, I was also there, and I...
Were you at Somerville when this happened?
No,
Yeah,
I was at the actual count when the count happened.
Oh, but you weren't at the Somerville TV station.
No, I wasn't.
Did you know
I
about
never-
that?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
we saw it on TV.
Oh, you did see it?
We saw it years ago.
So you were being funny just letting me tell what
Oh, of course I was.
I'm
I knew
telling
you knew.
secondhand.
I know. I knew you knew
I
more
only read
about
up on it.
I don't think your public knew about. But on the Vinnie Piero side, whether he was guilty or not is really not the issue. The issue really was, to me, was when Sal Albano won the race. Sal won by pure politics of Dave Sullivan, a city councilor who was a nice guy. Most of these people are nice people. And he made a ruling that the sticker that you put on, anywhere you put the sticker, even on another race, was a vote for Sal Albano. So there's good points and there's bad points to both sides of those stories. I would say to you that that was an era, and Vinnie and Sal were one era, and you should look at the whole era.
Oh, yeah, but all I'm saying is just the specter of that in
Oh.
the background is enough to keep our mayor from keeping access
You
open.
mean Mayor McGlynn? Don't get over it. You're talking in Winchester, right?
Well, Winchester has selectmen
Oh, okay.
because we're a town. Our mayor in Medford just seems to be camera shy. He doesn't come up to the council. He doesn't like my camera when I'm in City Hall. He just is camera shy. And I just factor in, I don't know if he has Vinnie Piero syndrome. It's my funny line.
Well, I think it's a great line. It is a great line that what you're using, but the accuracy makes me wonder, only wonder, because I remember I've been in this stuff too for years, I could say, did it give the Tea Party line? Think about it. The same story you're talking about, and then I added my side to it that I knew about, actually was there and saw, and told Dave Sullivan, how can you, and Dave, I've always supported you, but I can't support you on this decision. How can you possibly say if it's on an envelope, which they used to use, that's one of the reasons they stopped using envelopes. On an envelope, it's a vote for him. It could have been stuck there by any reason. The lawyers brought this to their attention. Vinny should have lost anyway, because on the primary, he didn't campaign. He was in the middle of that battle. The decision didn't come down. But let's change the venue for a minute and say, Mrs. Bumps, the state auditor, refused to pay taxes until she got caught. And yet we elected her the state auditor, the Robin Hood in Boston. Do you remember who the Robin Hood was?
No.
The mayor of Boston? I won't.
Oh. Yeah, Curly.
Curly. The mayor of Boston was in jail running the city of Boston. Historically, Massachusetts has forgiven politicians for
Even
different
Diane Wilkerson was forgiven many times.
Who?
Diane Wilkerson was
Forgiven many times. Jim Mazzelli is looking to be forgiven.
Well, Jim is really a mental issue.
Yeah, I know.
No one would do that, without being some kind of it wasn't even deceptive. It was just like so out in the public.
Well, he had a problem that he needed to resolve. The problem was, as a state representative, he should have tried to resolve the problem.
Yeah.
And that would have been more apt to be what I would have suggested. But I would suggest to anybody who has a problem, seek help. Seek help.
Public servants have to help the public.
Yes, right.
And I don't see enough of that. Even, in any city and town, there's going to be more interaction with the people. And Paul Donato's a good guy. Someone calls him up, there's a problem with my sidewalk, the sidewalk gets fixed.
He tries to make it fixed. Let me bring you out one other thing. Right now in Congress, they're doing redistricting, and they're going to district out a congressional seat. The word is, that I get from political friends of mine, is that Turney's going to be knocked out. Now, because of his wife's connection, remember the connection his wife had,
right.
Holding money for her brother, that was some connection to some illegal organization. Now, the public is the one who can save Mr. Turney and say, wait a minute, we don't want to have that. We've had a great congressman who had some problems with sexual relationships, and I don't know how to put it really nicely, but his house was used for a house of ill repute, and we've forgiven him for that. We've got to start looking at, when do we stop forgiving and start truly saying, excuse me, the liberal end of my party, which I am part of, needs to start looking at actually getting themselves out of and rehabilitate themselves and get away from politics for a while.
Well, here's the only thing I can say. If Ted Kennedy were alive today, we'd be a lot happier than having Ted there than Scott Brown. I think Ted would have been fierce in this Congress, in the Senate, and would have been a very good supporter, and we forgave Ted.
Of course.
For his...
We forgot about that one, didn't we?
Yeah, his youthful indiscretion. He was such a powerful and important guy. There is redemption. And he gets hammered every day on the Howie Carr show. To this day, they don't even have respect for the dead.
But look at it this way. Now, this is another one. You used the right word, redemption. Now, the Christian right in politics says the same word.
But they never employ it. They're all lip service.
They do in their own area. You get a second chance in their area.
If you're in their group.
If you're
not aligned with them, they don't give you redemption.
I'm not sure that's true. That's true in the liberal.
And I'm generalizing.
I know what you're saying, but I say that in the liberal groups too. You don't.
Oh yeah.
You get.
We do, but we're all real people.
Right.
So we're real people, and we deal with people as people.
Right. And issues as issues. There are issues, then there are non-issues that become issues that we should look at in less personality. And I'll use what the women's movement just recently said in New York, the feminist movement. Stop attacking what was her name?
Michelle Bachmann.
Michelle Bachmann. and I support the women's movement. Stop attacking her on her head. What is it called? What does she have? Head thing. Headaches.
She's got migraine.
Migraine headaches. I'm sorry, forgot the word for a moment. Migraine headaches.
Well, I can do that, but Michelle and Sarah Palin put themselves out there, as
course.
do any other politician.
But I'll say this, Joe, because I'm known as a pretty strong feminist woman in the party, and I'll say that Sarah Palin should have been focused on around her issues. I don't agree with a lot of what Sarah Palin says, but I agree with her right to say it. But when the media is trying to focus more on her family, tearing her down outside of what the issues represent. She basically paved the way for Michelle Bachmann, and now the women's movement is waking up to the fact that with the attack on Bachmann, it's now becoming more of a sexist issue than it is around their qualities and qualifications to run for President of the United States. I think Sarah Palin is probably smarter than most people think, because what she's done is open a door knowing that she could push hard on issues, and she's caught a great number of people in the country. And she essentially has opened the door to someone who's a little bit more moderate in their personality and presentation for Michelle Bachmann. Now, I don't support these women, but I think that what we're saying is you got to get out of the standard hypocrisy. When we're talking about redemption on the right-wing side and we're talking about it on the liberal side, there's got to be a moderation somewhere in between. That isn't the hypocrisy that we do it over here, but you can't do it over here, or they say you can't do it over there and we do it over here. I think that is one of the biggest issues in the country right now, is just the hypocrisy, the lack of focusing on issues. Political rhetoric is more important than philosophy. It's like what we were talking about around jobs on the Green Line. It's essentially, we're looking for social equity in the country. We cannot continue to create gaps in equity. If you look at the State of Boston, Black Boston report, the Urban League, the major gap, the research, Pew Research has found there's a major gap in income levels in this country. We're basically obliterating the middle class.
Absolutely.
We need to deal with these issues and not deal with so much dogma that is played out in a hypocritic rhetoric. We've got to get real. We've got to get out of the theoretical, and we've got to get real in terms of how we're dealing with that. And you look at England right now and the underclass that has built up there, and that socialist government, and the lack of equity that is now showing up there because they can't afford to provide everything that they're doing. Well, we could be going down that same route if we're not dealing with that. And when you're looking at projects, whether it's the Green Line or the Big Dig or things like that, people need to feel confident that the politics of it is not overriding the common sense and where the money should best be spent. And we're going to be facing Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security possibly for the younger generation. My parents fought for that, my grandparents, my husband and I have worked for safety nets. And the fact is that we're letting drive the engine and not where the need really is right at the moment.
We are. I think we're being wagged. I don't think we're letting politics.
It's politicians.
Look at how hard I've fought for one issue.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
8 years.
Years.
It's going on 9 years now. It's insane.
And guess what? One man who's running for public office in Medford is taking credit for all the work you did.
Well, I wrote him and said, that's kind of absurd.
He was part of it, and we both know that.
Yeah.
But he was never the person who tenacious as you have been. But I want to get back to Sarah Palin for one more question.
And then I want to get back to a Green Line question.
One more thing. There's a very good friend of mine who does a lot of politics. He's in the state party. He said, if it wasn't for the liberals and the liberal press attacking Sarah Palin, she would have gone nowhere. She was created as a foe by we liberals. I thought about that. time, and I reread some of the materials and stuff. He was, to my opinion, he made a very good statement.
I disagree.
Why?
Oh, I think that the Republicans realized she was a real gamble. McCain didn't have a shot against this really bright Democratic presidential candidate. And I think they just said, here's a Hail Mary pass. We get this woman that they don't know much about. She's pretty. She's photogenic. They never expected that many faux pas from her. So, and if any man had made as many stumbles, he would have
Wait a minute.
He would have been
Ronald
Dan
Reagan made
Quayleized.
as many stumbles as she did, and he became president.
The difference was that they had found...
They knew Ronald Reagan.
They knew Ronald Reagan, and they had a movie actor who knew how to play to the camera.
Right.
We've got 5 minutes left. One of my questions to you about the Green Line is this.
Okay.
There's two sides to the Green Line in Medford, or maybe three, right?
Right.
There's factions. What would happen if none of you people had been so vocal about it? What would have happened to this Green Line? Would it just have stayed in limbo if people hadn't talked about it?
It would have probably passed because some of them dealt with it big time. And for 23 years, the Law Foundation went on record as supporting this, and they put up a committee, left out all environmental justice. That means African American, disabled, and Spanish-speaking people. Anyone with ESL things were completely cut out of it, though they claimed it was going to help them. And what happened was in Medford, we got those groups together and said, hey, wait a minute. We haven't really had a vote on this. Do we really want it? And we started an educational group. And that's the third rail you're talking about. The one thing was, what was the name? The department, FTA?
Yeah, actually, Joe, we just received a letter from the FTA that they're going to come in to do a compliance review of MassDOT. And that's based upon a report, educational report that we had put in complaint regarding the fact of what we've been talking about is this going to the right direction? Why aren't authentic voices of the environmental justice disability involved? They're cherry picking where they want to go. Is it politically based versus really what is the reality of where ridership would be for cost efficiency? What special interests kind of push the way as opposed to at objective studies in terms of, and I think you were looking forward to hearing back from them. They'll be in this year. They'll be looking at the performance of the MBTA, MassDOT, the operations of it, how they're applying civil rights and disability law in all their processes. So I think we feel very good about that. I think, to wind up with your question, Joe, I think that being an educational group, we've written numerous reports to the state. And I would say that one of our ideas that we had put out about phasing this in to see what the impact would be, you might not have heard that if we hadn't been out there more as an educational group. We support it to College Ave. We're also realists about the financial condition, and that phasing in may be the better way to do this, and then everyone can see how it really is impacting either, both good and bad in regards to that. And I think my parting comment on the Green Line is I think we just need to make sure the state is not going to be land banking
Land banking is quickly, excuse me,
because we have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Land banking is nothing more than we buy the land today, and 10 years from now, we sell it to developers at the price that is today's price, and the developer develops something that's worth $10 million. Kendall Square is a perfect example of that. The only other thing that I would say is we've got to keep an eye on what this new committee they're setting up is about, and make sure our politicians are actually representing our people. I don't believe getting elected all the time really means you're representing all your people. What really represents is a group of people telling you what their community wants. For instance, you in Medford, there's a tremendous amount of support for you in Medford. We know that. We've been friends for a lot of years. We've talked about this and stuff. Yet the politicians have never really addressed your issue. That's how I would say it. And yet,
And look at what Medford's missing, this.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
missing.
This beautiful forum.
And the openness of what we're all, remember now, that we don't have to be here. You didn't have to ask us. We came because you knew we'd be as honest as we can, that how we believe things are. We won't be trying to bag you or sift you down the road with something. We'll tell you.
And I thank you both for all your work, because without getting the work out there and the word out there, the Green Line, I wouldn't have known what I know now.
Yeah.
And I still don't know enough about it. But thanks to you, I know more. And it's just important that we get the word out to everyone. So that's what visual radio and every public access show, you know, that deals with local situations
Right.
is all about.
Right.
This is Visual Radio. Today is Friday the 12th. My honored guests, Carolyn Rosen, William Wood. Thanks so much to Joe LaRocca and to WinCam for giving us time on this beautiful Friday.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Mr. Wingler. And thank WinCam.